Hey y'all, it's Megan. If you are returning to my channel, welcome back, and if you're new, welcome aboard. Today is going to be a non-Disney day. We're going to do a story time, but it's going to be a story time from when I was in high school, and we're going to talk about the absolute hot mess disaster that was my driving test. Alright, so it's going to be a non-Disney day, like I said. So we're in a different spot today. It's been a long day, so we're just gonna get comfy here. Anyone else an adult who bought themselves a Grogu Squishmallow at Costco? Because you can. So we're gonna just get cozy here, and we're just gonna chat. So I need to put y'all inside my brain for a few minutes so that you understand there is a path of logic that led me to make this video today. I swear there is. So I'm going to explain it real quick. In my office at work, I keep it very toasty because if you've been around for a little while, you know I am a lizard. I cannot regulate my own body temperature. I am always cold. So it is now starting to become fall. The air conditioning is still on in the building where I work. It's chilly. So I have a space heater in my office. I have blankets in my office. I wear sweaters and jackets. It's awful. Because I am always cold and I keep my office a little toastier, people who come into my office are immediately like, whew, wow, it is warm in your office. And I'm like, thank you. Yes, it is. And that made me think about when I was in high school and I was taking my driving test. So that is where the entire premise of the story came from, is because someone walked into my office and said, wow, it's warm in here. So now we're here. Called up, good to go. All right. I have a September birthday. And so I was always a lot older than all of my friends. So when I was in kindergarten, I was technically 5 for like the first 2 weeks, and then I turned 6. So I was always a lot older than everyone. So when it came time to drive, I was the first one of my friends that could drive. I was barely a sophomore in high school, and I was ready to go and get my permit. And I know that a lot of places are different, but where I live, it is, you have to be, on your 16th birthday, you can go and get your permit, and then after 6 months, if you've done all of the requisite driving requirements, then you can go and you can do the road test to get your license. So I went in when I turned 16, got my permit, we're good, we go through and we do the driving all through for the next 6 months. And then in March, because that was when I was 16 and a half, that was when I could do my road test. So I schedule it, we are all good, I've done all my stuff. So I show up and I'm like, okay, hi. And this woman gets in my car. She's a very tall woman, and she gets in my car, immediately like cranks the seat back, which understandable. Everyone in my family, the tallest person in my family, except for my husband, is 5'5". So we're very, very small people. So she cranks my seat back, cocks her eyebrow at me and goes, it's really hot in your car. And I'm like, I'm sorry. And so this is what made me think of this entire story. That was my very first interaction with this woman. She did not say hello. She did not say good afternoon. She didn't even check to make sure, hi, are you Megan? She just got in my car, pushed the seat back and said, it's really hot in your car. I'm like, okay, well, it is March. It is 40 degrees outside, so I had the heat on. I'm sorry. We're starting off great. And so we do the driving test. And let me just outline for you a few of the things that went wrong in this driving test. I don't know. I assume driving tests are pretty much the same everywhere. You have points, and like they make like a tally on each thing if you've done it wrong, and if you get over a certain number of points, like you don't pass. So the number where I live is 10. You couldn't get more than like 10 things wrong out of the entire drive in order to pass. So the first thing that happens, we pull out of the DMV parking area and we go towards the first stoplight, the first light that I hit, and it turns yellow right as I am starting to get to it. So what do? Do you run the red light and fail automatically, or do you hit your brakes and stop but kind of have to do it quickly? You hit the brakes, obviously. So I brake, but it wasn't like I had a ton of room to brake nice and gently so that there was no there was no whiplash. It wasn't that bad. I just braked firmly and point, because I braked too quickly. Okay, I guess I did. That's fine. Moving on. So then we make the right hand turn, I turned right on red. I was allowed to do that, did that just fine. And then she's like, okay, make a left across traffic. All right, that's good. To make the left across traffic, there's a hill that comes up towards us. It's a blind hill. She wants me to make a left across traffic on a blind hill. Okay, we can do this. I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting. And I'm like, okay, don't gun it. Don't gun it. You just gently make the turn. But once you decide that you're gonna go, you have to commit because someone could come over that hill. So I'm like, okay, I'm checking. The car goes by and I'm like, okay, I think we're good. And I look one last time as I'm like starting to move and someone comes flying over the hill. So I hit the brakes. I see her riding over there and I'm like, oh my God, what did you want me to do? Anyway, we move along. Comes to parallel parking. Parallel parking is not a big deal for a lot of people, especially now that your car like does it for you or whatever, but we did have to do a parallel parking test. Most of the time they take you somewhere where you've got cones or there's like trash cans or something. She takes me into a neighborhood where there are people parked in front of their houses and she was like, okay, park behind that minivan. I'm like, okay. So there was just a minivan and then there was nobody behind it. So it, you know, I could have theoretically just like backed up forever and wouldn't have hit anything. So it was pretty safe. So I pull up next to the minivan, turn on my turn signal, check everything, do the nice little parallel park, pull forward. She gets out and looks, and I see her riding and I'm like, what now? And the last thing that was like really like a what kind of moment, like I mentioned, she got in and immediately moved the seat back because she was a taller lady. She was probably in the neighborhood of like 5'8", 5'9", which is, you know, a reasonably tall person. I'm 5 feet tall. I'm very like short. It's hard for me to see stuff. So I pull up to a stop sign. It's a 4-way stop, no big deal. But there's a bush that is completely blocking my field of view to the right. So I stop at the line, at the stop bar, and I'm like, okay, I don't see anything, but I can't quite see around this bush. Let's be cautious. Let's creep forward just a little bit, stop again, not just like rolling, you know, through it. I pulled forward, stopped again, not in the intersection, just far enough forward that I could see around this bush. I'm clear, go ahead and go. And then we head back. There was a couple other things, but those were the main problems. So we get back to the DMV and she just looks at me and goes, you failed. And I was like, what? Like, I've never failed anything. I was like, I don't even get B's. What do you mean I failed? And so then she's like, let me explain everything. And she like shows me all of the things that she's like marked off for. And I think there were 14. You can only miss 10 and still get your license. And I think she had done 14 things. 7 of them were not turning my turn signal on as early as I should have. Which to me, shouldn't that be 1? Like, if it's obvious that like I am not turning it on at the 100 feet or whatever mark, then you're like, okay, she obviously can't gauge exactly what 100 feet is. Like, let's take off 1 for that. No, she took it off every single time I turned my turn signal on, apparently. So that was 7 of my like 14. Another one of the points was when I stopped at that bush, she said I shouldn't have had to pull up again to see. And I said, but I couldn't see. You should have been able to. I don't know what to tell you. I'm small. I couldn't see. I was trying to be safe. Okay? I'll take it. Whatever. But the one that kills me, the parallel parking. I parallel parked just fine. Didn't hit a van. Wouldn't have hit anything that was behind me. But when she got out and looked to see how close I was to the curb, because, you know, if you're too far away from the curb, then, you know, that's like points off too, because you can't be like in the road when you parallel park. That makes sense. She said, and I quote, I have the paperwork somewhere. I used to keep it because it just like, it drove me nuts. I had the paperwork where she wrote this out. It said, if there had been a curb, you probably would have hit it. What? I mean, I can laugh at it now because it's been so long, but at the time I was distraught. She gets out of the car, she goes and gets my mom who had come with me, and I guess doesn't tell my mom anything, and my mom walks up to the car and she pokes her head in and goes, how'd it go? And I who had cried maybe 5 times in front of anyone, including my family at this point. I was just bawling, just distraught. I was like, I don't want to drive. I don't want to. Just get in. Just you come get in the car. So I didn't even get out of the car. I was sobbing hysterically because I was so embarrassed because I had failed this driving test, and this woman had made me feel so awful. And so I just crawled over the center console and got in the passenger seat and just slumped down because I didn't want anyone to see me. And my mom drove me back to school, and she pulled up out front and she was like, okay, like, Meg, you gotta you know, clean your face up and you gotta go back in. And I was like, Mama, no, I can't go back. I said, I'm the first one of my friends who goes to take my driving test. I can't, and you know, everyone's gonna be like, how did it go? How did it go? Everyone's gonna be so excited. I was like, I can't go in there and tell them I failed. I can't do it. And I was like, please, 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 please don't make me go back in here. And I am just crying so hard you give yourself the hiccups and like you start gasping and stuff. It was not a cute look. I'd never emoted like that, so she did in fact let me just go home. And you know, by the next day I had cooled off and I wasn't as embarrassed by it. And you know, when a couple of my friends were like, oh, did you take your test? I was like, yeah, it didn't go great. They're like, oh, I hear that happen sometimes. And they were all super nice about it, but I was all torn up. When I went back you know, you had to wait a week to take your test. I went back the next week and I passed it, obviously, and it was fine. And everyone was like, oh, in a few months you won't even remember that this happened. It's so not a big deal. It's been 14 years. I still remember it vividly. It's a peek inside my brain and how it works, that I could go from, hey Megan, your office is hot, to I'm gonna talk about something that happened when I was 16. Why not? So that is it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed my little rambling for the day, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, y'all. Use my mug for. You wanna say hi? You wanna say hi? You want me to turn the light off so you can say hi? No, it's so dark. Now we say hi. Say hi. No, not to me.